The village of Elder rested quietly under the shadow of the tall black mountains. It was evening, and the sky was painted in orange and gold. Children laughed near the river, women cooked in their small homes, and men returned from the fields. It was a simple life, hard but peaceful. No one expected that night to be different from any other. But then the air changed. A strange silence fell. The birds that always sang at sunset suddenly flew away. Dogs began to bark wildly. Goats and horses pulled at their ropes as if they wanted to escape. The ground trembled softly, at first like a whisper, then stronger, shaking the wooden doors and windows. The people of Elder looked at each other, fear rising in their hearts. Then came the sound, a roar so deep and furious that it felt like the mountains themselves were screaming. Children covered their ears. Mothers pulled their little ones close. The old people of the village closed their eyes, whispering words of prayer. The sound grew louder, closer, and then a shadow covered the sky. A dragon. Its wings stretched wider than the roofs of the village. Its scales glowed like burning coal. Fire leaked from its mouth, and every flap of its wings sent storms of dust and smoke across the ground. The villagers screamed. Some ran toward the fields, others toward the river. But no place was safe, because the dragon circled above them, hungry and furious. The chief of the village, an old man with a white beard, stood frozen in front of the people. His voice trembled as he shouted, "Stay calm, hide in your homes." But no one listened. Panic ruled the air. The dragon dived low, its tail smashing into the ground, breaking fences and crushing carts. Flames burst from its mouth, and 3 homes turned to fire in seconds. The sky became red with smoke, the air hot enough to burn the skin. Among the running people, one girl sat quietly in her wooden wheelchair. Her name was Arya. She had dark hair tied back, and her eyes, sharp and steady, watched the dragon with calmness. She did not run because she could not. Her legs were broken long ago in an accident, and since then, she lived her life in the chair. But tonight, her stillness made her look different, like a shadow in the middle of fire and chaos. Arya's hands gripped the arms of her chair, not in fear, but in thought. She had read about this dragon. In old books hidden in her father's chest, she had seen the drawings, the strange signs, the warnings. For years, she was laughed at for wasting time with dusty pages. But now, as the monsters circled the village, those stories no longer felt like tales. They felt like truth. The dragon roared again, its eyes red as fire. It spoke, its voice like thunder rolling across stone. "Bring me your gold. Bring me your food, or I will burn every soul." The villagers screamed. Many dropped to their knees. Others cried for mercy. The chief trembled, ready to agree, ready to sacrifice everything to survive. Arya's eyes narrowed. Her heart beat fast. She remembered her father's voice, gentle but firm. "Strength is not in your legs. Arya, it is in your will." Her lips pressed together. She whispered to herself, "Maybe this is why I was left behind. Maybe this is why I survived when others did not." The dragon landed on the edge of the village, its claws digging into the ground. The earth shook with each step it took. It towered above the people, its shadow swallowing them whole. The heat of its breath dried the air, made every throat burn. No warrior stepped forward. No man dared to lift a sword. But Arya did not look away. Her eyes met the beast's, steady and calm. And in that moment, the dragon paused. It tilted its head, as if surprised to find no fear in the eyes of this girl who could not walk. For the first time, silence returned to the village, broken only by the crackle of burning wood. The villagers noticed her. They whispered, "It is the crippled girl. Why is she staring at the dragon? Why does she not hide?" Some shook their heads. "She will die. The beast will crush her first." But none of them stepped forward. None of them dared to protect her. They only watched, waiting for the end. Arya's fingers touched the old wooden staff leaning against her chair. It was carved with faded lines and signs no one in the village understood. She carried it not as a weapon, but as memory of her father. Now, for the first time, she felt the wood grow warm in her hands. A small glow ran through the cracks, soft and hidden from others. Her breath caught, but she kept her face calm. The dragon leaned closer, its golden eyes locked on hers. Smoke rolled from its nose, each breath heavy as thunder. The heat burned her cheeks, but she did not move. Instead, she whispered so low that only she could hear, "This is not the end, this is the beginning." And in that moment, something changed in the air. The villagers still saw only fear and fire. But Arya felt it, a pull, a calling, as if the world itself was waiting for her choice. The dragon blinked slowly, curious, confused, angry. The girl in the wheelchair, weak in body but strong in spirit, had just become the center of the storm. The night of fire had only begun. And the story of Arya, the disabled girl who dared to confront the furious dragon, had just opened its first page. Whispers of the past. The night after the dragon's attack was heavy with silence. Smoke rose from broken houses, and the smell of ash lingered in the air. The villagers gathered in small groups, whispering in fear. They spoke of the dragon, of its power, of its demand for gold and sacrifice. But more than that, they whispered about the girl. Arya, the one in the wooden chair, the one who had not run, had not cried, had not begged. Some said she was foolish, others said she was brave. But everyone agreed. Something strange had happened when she stared into the dragon's eyes. Old women shook their heads. It is not natural. No child should face a beast like that and live. The chief rubbed his beard and muttered, "Maybe the dragon marked her. Maybe she is cursed." Children, too young to understand, repeated the words they heard from their parents. "The crippled girl will bring doom," some said. Others whispered, "She carries the staff of secrets." Arya sat alone in her small hut at the edge of the village. The fire in her lamp flickered. Shadows danced on the walls. She held the old wooden staff in her hands, running her fingers over the carved lines. Her heart was still racing from the night, but her face was calm. She remembered the way the dragon had paused, the way its eyes had lingered on her. It had looked at her not as prey, but as something else, something it could not understand. The whispers of the villagers reached her ears. Through the thin walls, she heard their voices. "She is cursed. She is chosen. She will bring more fire upon us." Every word felt heavy, but Arya only tightened her grip on the staff. Her father had once told her about the staff, long ago when she was still a child. He had said it was not just a piece of wood, but a relic of old times. "Arya," he had whispered one night, "there are things the world forgets, but they do not die, they only sleep." She never understood those words fully, not until now. Tonight, she felt the staff breathing with her, warm and alive. Her past came back to her in fragments. She remembered the accident, the fall from the cliff that crushed her legs. She remembered the long months when she could not leave her bed, the pain, the tears, the anger when the other children ran free and she could not, the way people pitied her, then ignored her, then forgot her. But through it all, she remembered her father's voice, steady and calm. "You are not broken, Arya. You are waiting, and one day, the world will see." Now, as she sat with the staff glowing faintly in her lap, she began to wonder if that day had come. But doubt pressed hard against her heart. She thought of the villagers, of their fearful eyes, of their cruel whispers. She was only one girl, her body weak, her legs useless. How could she stand against a creature that burned homes with one breath? Her courage felt small compared to the fire in the dragon's chest. Yet deep inside a spark lived. A quiet voice whispered from her memory, the same voice she heard every time she felt hopeless. "Strength is not in your legs, but in your will." She whispered those words aloud, her voice shaking but clear. "Then I will not give up, not yet." The night stretched long, and Arya did not sleep. Instead, she opened the old books her father had left behind. The pages were yellow and fragile, the ink faded. But the stories were alive. They spoke of ancient beasts, of warriors who fought with more than swords. They spoke of curses, of magic bound in fire and blood. And in the middle of it all, one tale returned again and again. The tale of a dragon bound by chains unseen. Arya read until her eyes grew heavy. She traced the drawings with her finger. The dragon's shape, its fiery eyes, the same signs carved on her staff. Her breath quickened. Her mind raced. It was the same creature, the same beast that now hunted her village. Her father had known, long ago, and he had left her the only key. As dawn broke, the villagers gathered in the square again. The dragon's roar echoed from the mountains, reminding them of the promise it demanded. The chief announced with heavy heart, "We will gather gold, we will offer food, and if that is not enough, we will give what asks." The people lowered their heads, none willing to argue. Fear ruled them. But then, a child's voice broke the silence. She faced the dragon. She did not bow. Why not her? Every eye turned to Arya, who had rolled into the square with her staff across her lap. Her face calm, her eyes sharp. She looked at the villagers, their fear, their anger, their disbelief. And in that moment, she felt the weight of her past, the years of pain and whispers pressing down on her. But instead of breaking, it hardened her heart like steel. Arya spoke, her voice carrying across the square, steady and sure. "I'm not cursed. I'm not weak. I know this beast. I know its secret, and I will face it." Gasps filled the air. Some laughed in disbelief. Others shook their heads in fear. But a few, just a few, stared at her with something new in their eyes, hope. And the dragon's shadow passed once again over the mountains, its roar shaking the earth. Arya lifted the staff, the glow faint but steady. She whispered to herself, "This is my path, this is my fight." And though her legs could not carry her, her spirit walked taller than anyone in that square. The dragon's fury. The sun had barely risen when the roar shook the valley again. It was not the gentle call of morning birds, but a thunder that tore the sky apart. The villagers froze, their hands shaking as they dropped tools, bread, and water. Children cried, elders trembled, and mothers clutched their little ones. The beast had returned, angrier than before. The dragon came down from the black mountains, its wings slicing through the clouds. Each beat of its wings sent shockwaves across the land, dust rising in storms, roofs bending under the wind. Its scales blazed like molten iron, glowing brighter in the sunlight. Its eyes burned like two suns filled with rage. And when it opened its mouth, the fire inside looked endless. The villagers gathered in the square, driven there by fear and command of the chief. In the center lay piles of coins, broken jewelry, silver plates, and baskets of food. They had given everything they owned, hoping it would calm the beast. The chief stood in front of the treasure, his voice trembling as he shouted to the sky, "Great dragon, here is our tribute. Take it and spare us." The dragon circled above once, twice, then descended with a crash that shook the ground. Its claws dug deep into the soil, breaking stones like glass. Its hot breath swept across the villagers, forcing them to bow. Some wept, some fainted, some prayed. The shadow of the beast swallowed them all. It leaned closer, its golden eyes narrowing on the treasure. A growl rumbled in its chest, a sound that made the earth itself tremble. Then the beast spoke, its voice deep as rolling thunder. "This is nothing. Your gold is dust. Your food is ash. Bring me more." And then it added with a growl that cut through bone, "Or bring me blood." The words turned the villagers pale. Blood meant sacrifice. Blood meant life. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Fathers stepped back in silence. The chief fell to his knees, tears running down his face. "Please, mighty one, spare us. We are poor. We gave all we have." But the dragon only roared, the fire in its throat rising higher. Its tail slammed against the earth, crushing fences, splitting the ground. The people screamed, running in all directions. The beast's wings spread wide, blocking the sun. It demanded fear, it demanded surrender. Yet in that storm of terror, a single voice rose. It was clear, calm, and sharp like steel. No more. The villagers turned, shocked. There she was, Arya, sitting in her wooden chair, the staff across her lap. Her eyes fixed on the dragon, steady and unshaken. The same girl they whispered about, the same girl they called weak, cursed, useless. Now, she was the only one standing against the fury. The dragon turned its head slowly toward her. Its eyes narrowed, fire rolling in its chest. Smoke poured from its nostrils, its growl louder, deeper, angrier. It stepped closer, each footfall shaking the earth like a drum of war. The people cried out, "Arya, stop, you will die." But Arya did not look away. She gripped the staff tighter, feeling the warmth grow in her palms. The carvings along the wood glowed faintly, as if waking from sleep. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. This was no longer fear, this was choice. The dragon lowered its head until its eyes were level with hers. The heat from its breath scorched her skin, her hair blew back. "Still," she whispered, "you will not take more." The dragon's growl turned into a laugh, cruel and thunderous. "A child in a broken chair dares to defy me," it said. "You are nothing." The villagers gasped. Some begged her to be silent. Others hid their faces. But Arya spoke louder, her voice carrying across the square. "You are bound, dragon. You are not free. I have seen the signs. I have read the words." The beast paused, its eyes flashing with surprise, then rage. It roared so loud that windows shattered, the sky shook, birds fell from the air. Flames burst from its mouth, racing toward her. The villagers screamed, expecting her to vanish in fire. But in that instant, the staff glowed bright. A shield of light wrapped around her, pushing the flames aside like water. The fire scorched the ground, melted the stones, but left her untouched. Gasps filled the square. Disbelief spread through the people. The dragon growled, confused, angry, restless. It had expected fear, it had expected death. But the girl remained, alive, glowing with strange strength. The staff hummed in her hands, pulsing like a heartbeat. Arya raised it higher, her voice clear. "You are not master here. You are prisoner of your own curse." The dragon roared again, shaking the mountains, but its eyes betrayed something new. Not just fury, not just hunger, but hesitation. The villagers watched, their fear mixed now with wonder. The girl they had called weak stood alone against the beast. And the beast, for the first time, did not strike. It studied her, it measured her. The fury had not ended, but something deeper had begun. The unseen strength. The village square was silent except for the crackle of fire and the heavy breath of the dragon. Ash floated in the air, glowing like dying stars. The people of Elder hid behind broken walls and trembling hands, waiting for the beast to finish what it had begun. But still, Arya sat in her chair, her small figure glowing faintly with the staff's light. The dragon's eyes narrowed, its head tilting as though it tried to see through her. It had crushed armies, burned cities, broken champions. Yet here was a girl who could not walk, and still she faced it without bending. That was something the beast could not understand. The villagers whispered in fear. "She is mad. She is cursed. She will bring the fire on us all." But some whispered differently now, their voices trembling with wonder. "She is still alive. She stood against its fire. She carries something none of us carry." Arya's hands shook slightly on the staff, but her eyes remained steady. The warmth of the wood spread through her arms, calming her fear. She could feel the pulse inside it, as if it carried a beating heart. Each throb reminded her she was not alone. Her father's voice came back to her. "Strength is not in the body. Arya, strength is in what cannot be broken." She lifted her chin, her voice firm though soft. "You think I am weak because I cannot walk, but I see what others do not. I see chains around you, dragon." The beast roared, shaking the ground, its wings beating storms of dust. Chains, it thundered. No chains can bind me. I am fire, I am death. Arya did not flinch. She pressed the staff against the ground, the carvings glowing brighter. You are not free, she whispered. You are trapped in fury. You are bound by the curse of ages, and I will not fear you. The dragon's fury boiled. It swung its tail across the square, smashing carts and stones. But the girl remained untouched, the staff's glow spreading in waves that broke the impact before it could reach her. The villagers gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. The fragile girl in the wooden chair was now holding back the might of a creature that no knight had ever stopped. The beast lowered its head, its fangs sharp as blades, its eyes burning with hate. Do you think your light can save you, child? Do you think your broken body can stand against me? Arya's lips tightened, her fear still there, but her will rising stronger. My body is broken, yes, but my will is not, and you cannot burn what will not bow. Her words cut through the smoke like blades. The villagers felt them in their bones. Some lifted their heads for the first time that day. The old chief stared in shock, his mouth dry, whispering, "This girl, she is something more." The dragon snarled, but in its growl there was unease. For centuries it had fed on fear, had ruled by terror. But this girl gave no fear, only defiance. And that defiance was like poison in its fire. Arya closed her eyes, remembering the long nights of pain when she had cried alone, the days when she could not run, could not dance, could not climb the hills like the others. She remembered the whispers, the pity, the cruel laughter of children. She remembered how everyone thought her life had ended when her legs broke. But here, now, she realized that was when her true strength had been born. The staff in her hand pulsed brighter, responding to her will. The glow spread across the ground, lighting the broken stones. The dragon stepped back slightly, growling low, its eyes narrowing. It had faced blades and arrows and spears, but had never faced the fire of spirit, the unseen strength of a soul that refused to break. Arya opened her eyes, fire dancing in them. Her voice rang out, calm but strong. You can burn my home, you can break my body, but you cannot take my will, and as long as I stand, you will not win. The dragon roared, furious, and launched forward, flames bursting like rivers of fire. But the staff shone brighter than ever, casting a shield that cut through the flames. The fire wrapped around her like a storm, but could not touch her. The villagers cried out in shock, some falling to their knees, others staring with wide eyes. For the first time, they saw the girl not as weak, not as cursed, but as a force they could not name. The dragon pulled back, smoke rolling from its mouth. It glared at her, its fury rising higher. But hidden deep in its eyes, for just a breath, was something else. Not anger, not pride, but doubt. The beast of fire had found a wall it could not burn. And in that moment, as ash fell and flames raged, the people of Elders saw a truth they had never imagined. Strength was not always in swords or in warriors. Sometimes it was in a broken body that refused to bow. Sometimes it was in the unseen strength of a girl who dared to look into the eyes of fire and say, "No more." Clash of fire and will. The ground shook as the dragon's roar split the air. Its wings beat like thunder, sending a storm of dust and broken stone across the square. The villagers covered their faces, screaming as the beast rose higher, towering above them all. But in the center of the chaos, Arya sat in her chair, her hands locked tight around the glowing staff. The dragon's chest swelled with fire, light searing through its scales. Its fury had reached its peak, and it would show no mercy now. Flames poured from its jaws, racing forward in a river of death. The fire wrapped around Arya, burning the earth, scorching the stones. But again the staff flared, brighter than before, a wall of light splitting the flames. The villagers gasped, unable to believe what their eyes saw. A girl who could not walk was holding back the fire of a beast that had destroyed armies. Her small frame looked fragile against the fury of the monster. Yet her spirit filled the air with something greater than fear. Hope. Arya's face glistened with sweat. Her arms shook with the effort. The shield of light trembled under the weight of the dragon's fire. Her chest burned, her breath came heavy, but she did not let go. Every second felt like a battle of eternity. But she whispered to herself, "I will not bow, I will not break." The dragon's flames finally stopped, smoke curling from its jaws. It roared in frustration, the sound breaking windows, shaking the very earth. It slammed its claws into the ground, carving trenches in the soil. Its tail swept across the square, shattering fences, splintering wood. The people scattered, crying out, but Arya stood her ground. She lifted the staff, the carvings now glowing like fire itself. Words came to her lips, words she had only seen written in the old books. Her voice shook at first, then grew stronger. The chant rose, each word filled with power she had never known. The ground beneath her chair glowed with the same signs carved into the staff. The dragon's eyes widened for a moment, as though it recognized the sound. Its growl turned into a snarl, fury rising like a storm. It leapt forward, wings snapping the air, claws reaching for her. The villagers screamed, sure she would be crushed. But the staff pulsed with light, and a wave of energy threw the beast back. The dragon crashed against the mountain wall with a thunderous roar. Rocks shattered, dust rose high, but still it climbed back up. Its body shook with rage, its eyes burned hotter. It had never been challenged like this, not by kings, not by soldiers, not by warriors, and now by a girl who could not walk. It was being forced back. Arya's chest heaved, her arms trembling from the effort. The glow of the staff flickered for a moment, and she nearly collapsed. Pain tore through her body, her weakness dragging her down. But then she heard it again, her father's voice in memory. Strength is not in your legs, Arya, it is in your will. Her grip tightened, her eyes flared with fire. She looked at the dragon, no longer seeing a god of destruction. She saw its chains, invisible yet real. She saw its curse, the prison it could not escape. And in that moment, she realized she was not just fighting the beast, she was fighting the curse itself. The dragon lunged again, this time faster, sharper. Its claws sliced through the air, its roar shaking her very bones. But Arya thrust the staff forward, light exploding from the carvings. The blast struck the dragon's chest, forcing it to the ground. The earth split beneath the impact, dust and fire rising in waves. The villagers cried out, some in fear, some in awe. Never had they seen such a clash. Never had they believed it possible. Their fear of the girl began to change into something else. Respect, wonder, and hope. They whispered her name, Arya. Arya. The dragon rose again, slower now, its body smoking, its wings trembling. Its eyes locked on her, filled with hate, but also something else. A shadow of doubt, a flicker of fear. It opened its mouth, fire building once more. But deep inside, it knew this was no ordinary fight. Arya pointed the staff at the beast, her voice steady. You cannot win, dragon. Your fury is not greater than my will. The light spread wider, reaching across the square. The carvings on the staff glowed like burning stars. And for the first time, the people believed the clash was no longer just fire against wood, beast against girl. It was rage against will, curse against courage, despair against hope. And though the dragon roared louder, though the flames burned hotter, the girl in the chair did not move, did not fall. She stood in spirit taller than the mountain itself. Truth revealed. The dragon lay sprawled across the broken stones, its chest rising and falling with heavy breath. Smoke curled from its jaws, and its wings dragged against the ground like torn banners. The villagers stared from behind shattered walls, too afraid to move closer, too stunned to run away. And in the center of it all, Arya sat in her wooden chair, the staff glowing faintly in her hands. Her arms ached, her body weak, but her eyes were sharp. She could feel the truth pressing at the edges of her mind, like a door waiting to open. The staff pulsed again, as if urging her to see more, to listen deeper. She closed her eyes for a breath, and the carvings flared with light. A vision came to her, not of the present, but of the past. She saw warriors long ago, standing where she now sat. They held the same staff, their eyes bright with courage, their hearts filled with fire. And before them stood the same dragon, roaring, burning, destroying. But it was not the same as now. Its eyes were different, its roar filled not only with anger, but with pain. The vision shifted, and she saw the dragon bound by chains of fire. Not chains made of iron, but of words, of curses, of forgotten power. An ancient figure, cloaked in shadow, raised hands toward the beast. The curse locked it into rage, twisting its heart, stealing its will. It was not born to be fury. It was forced into it. Arya gasped, her eyes opening wide. The villagers watched as the glow of the staff spread brighter across the square. She lifted it slowly, pointing at the dragon, her voice shaking but clear. "You are not what they believe. You are not only fire and death, you are cursed." The dragon snarled, trying to rise, but its legs trembled. Its golden eyes flashed, a flicker of something new, something buried deep. It roared again, but this time its roar cracked, breaking into a sound almost human. Pain, sorrow, a cry trapped for centuries. The people gasped, whispering to each other. "What is she saying? Cursed? What does she mean?" Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others clutched their hearts, afraid to hope. But Arya pressed forward, her staff blazing like a star. Her voice grew louder, filled with a strength beyond her body. "You were a protector once, not a destroyer. I see it, I know it. You are bound, not free." The dragon lowered its head, its chest heaving, its fire dimming for a moment. It growled, not in fury now, but in confusion. The chains she had seen in her vision glimmered faintly around its form, invisible to others, but clear to her. She raised the staff higher, the light wrapping around them both. The carvings glowed with ancient power, the same words she had read in the old books. Her lips began to form them again, a chant rolling softly from her tongue. The dragon's body shook, its wings spread wide, its roar tearing the air. But the sound was not only rage, it was resistance. It fought against the curse, fought against the prison. The villagers covered their ears, some fell to their knees. But they watched with wide eyes, seeing the impossible. The beast they had feared for generations was trembling, not from strength, but from the breaking of chains. Arya's face shone with sweat. Her hands gripped the staff so tightly her knuckles turned white. Still she did not stop. The glow wrapped around the dragon's body, each line of light pressing against the invisible chains. The curse resisted, darkness swirling in the air like smoke. But the staff burned brighter, driven not by power of body, but by the fire of will. Arya's voice cracked as she shouted the final words. "You are not a slave of fury. You are more." The dragon let out a roar that shook the mountains. But this time it was not fire, it was light. The chains cracked, shattered, vanished into the air like sparks. The beast staggered, collapsing onto its knees. Its chest heaved, its eyes no longer red with rage, but golden, soft, alive. The villagers fell silent, stunned. They had seen their destroyer turn into something else before their eyes. The chief whispered in disbelief, "She has broken it. She has broken the curse." Children peeked from behind their mothers, no longer crying, but staring with wonder. Arya sat trembling, her body weak, every breath heavy. But her eyes glowed with victory, with truth. She had seen the heart of the beast, and it was not only fury. It was sorrow, it was trapped, it was a prisoner longing to be free. And she, the girl in the wooden chair, had given it that chance. The dragon lowered its head toward her, its golden eyes meeting hers. No words came, only silence. But in that silence was something greater than speech. Gratitude, recognition, respect. The beast that had demanded gold, fire, and blood now bowed its head to a broken girl. And in that moment, the world of elders shifted. The villagers no longer saw a crippled child. They saw a savior. The dragon no longer seemed a monster. It seemed a fallen king. And Arya, weak in body but unbroken in spirit, had revealed a truth that would change everything. The shocking ending. The dragon's roar faded into silence. Its body trembled as the last sparks of the curse broke away into the air. The ground, once burning with fire, now cooled beneath its claws. The villagers stood frozen, their eyes wide, their voices caught in their throats. They had expected death, they had prepared for ashes, but instead they saw a miracle. Arya sat in her chair, the staff still glowing softly. Her chest rose and fell with exhaustion, her arms heavy, her face pale, but her eyes remained locked on the beast, steady and calm. The dragon lowered its head until its snout nearly touched the earth before her. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what came next. Then the impossible happened. The dragon's body shimmered, its scales glowing with golden light. Its massive frame trembled, cracked, and shifted. The villagers gasped as wings folded in on themselves, as fire turned into dust. Before their eyes, the furious beast shrank and changed. Where the dragon once stood, now knelt a figure of a man. Tall, strong, but his eyes carried the same golden fire. His clothes were torn and ancient, his skin marked with lines of glowing light. He looked young, yet old, human, yet something greater. The villagers fell back in fear and awe, whispering prayers. Arya's lips parted in shock, her hands gripping the staff tighter. The man lifted his head and looked at her. His voice was deep, but no longer thunder, no longer rage. It was heavy with sorrow, yet warm with gratitude. "You broke the chains, little one. You freed me." The villagers cried out, some dropping to their knees. They had expected a monster, but now stood before them a cursed warrior. The old chief whispered, trembling, "It was never only a beast, it was a man, a soul bound in fire." The people's fear began to shift into wonder, into disbelief, and all eyes turned again to Arya. She swallowed hard, her voice quiet but steady. "Why? Why were you cursed?" The man's golden eyes dimmed with memory. "Long ago, I was chosen to guard this valley, to protect it with my life. But I was betrayed, bound by dark words, forced to live as fury, as flame, as fear. For centuries, I watched myself burn what I swore to protect, unable to stop." His voice broke, and for a moment the proud warrior bowed his head. Arya's eyes softened, her heart aching for him. "You are free now," she said, her voice trembling. "The curse is broken." The man nodded, his gaze steady. "Because of you, child, not because of armies, not because of kings, but because of a will that did not break." The villagers stepped closer, their fear melting into awe. They looked at Arya, the girl they had pitted, mocked, and ignored. Now they saw her as something far greater. Not weak, not cursed, but chosen. The old chief fell to his knees before her, his voice trembling. "Forgive us, Arya. We did not see your strength. We were blind." Tears filled her eyes, but she shook her head. "I do not want her pity. I do not want her worship. I only want this village to remember, strength is not in the body, but in the will." The people bowed their heads, her words echoing deep in their hearts. They would never forget. The warrior turned his gaze to the mountains, his voice solemn. "My time here is ending. The curse kept me bound to this world, but freedom will release me." His body began to shimmer again, fading into golden light. He looked once more at Arya, his voice soft. "You gave me peace, and in return, I give you hope. May your people never fear again." The light rose into the sky, breaking through the clouds. The villagers shielded their eyes, watching in silence. And then he was gone, leaving only warmth in the air. The dragon, the curse, the fury, all vanished. Only the memory of the truth remained. Arya sat in the quiet square, her hands still resting on the staff, her body weak, but her spirit towering higher than the mountains. The villagers gathered around her, some crying, some smiling, all filled with awe. Children whispered her name, women touched her shoulders, men bowed their heads. For the first time, they saw her not as broken, but as whole. The chief spoke loudly, his voice strong again. This girl saved us all, not with sword, not with strength, but with a will stronger than fire. Let her name be carried in our stories. Let her courage be remembered for all time. The people raised their voices, shouting her name, Arya, Arya, Arya. And though her body was frail, though her legs would never carry her again, her spirit soared higher than any dragon's wings. For she had faced the fire, she had broken the curse, she had freed a soul, and in doing so, she had proven a truth the world would never forget. That true strength is not found in flesh or bone, but in the heart that refuses to bow.